Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Eternal Life Plan. Boy, do I have a tale for you tonight. This is a tale of Christian deception, multiple sexual abuse cover-ups, family betrayal, spiritual abuse, mental abuse, spiritual blackmail, and spiritual manipulation. And this is happening now at one of, well, I'm told the largest Christian broadcast network in the world, taking in $1 billion in donations. You heard that right. $1 billion in donations with over 100 affiliate ministries. And we'll go over those ministries in a bit here. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Daystar Ministries and the president, Joni Lamb. Would you tell me in the comments if you've heard about this scandal? Because this is a really big shakeup in the Protestant community. And now Joni is threatening legal action against podcasters. So everything I say in this video, in this live stream, I'll preface it with allegedly. So the Catholic Church is often criticized, as you know, for its sexual abuse cover-ups. Sean Hannity supposedly left the Catholic Church because of the sex abuse scandals. Well, as Father Imbarrato pointed out in his recent video, Hannity left the church out of convenience so he could divorce his wife and continue a relationship with Ainsley Earhardt of Fox News. I'm sure you all remember Ainsley. That sounds more like the truth of why Hannity left. So Catholics who think leaving the church for a Protestant church, if they think they're immune from scandal, oh boy, are they wrong. There's lots about this story that I'm going to share with you that really disturbs me. The way they so loosely use the word love and then use God and the Bible as their tools to manipulate, to control, and get their way. I've got an audio to play for you on that. The Daystar scandal is so egregious because it's happening to the Lamb family, and the mother, Joni Lamb, the president of Daystar, is the culprit. Now, she doesn't think she's the culprit. She thinks her son, Jonathan, is. But I'll show you and lay out the case that it is Joni. Personally, I think there's been crimes committed, and we'll get into that too. So let me introduce you to the Lamb family, the head of Daystar. And let me just add this too. There's only 3 board members of Daystar. Does that sound familiar? And one is Jonathan, the son, and the other 2 are close personal friends to who? Joni, the president of Daystar. This sounds so familiar, doesn't it? Another nonprofit whose the president surrounds themselves with yes people, just like church militant. All right. So let me get into introducing you to the Lamb family. But let me just see. Have you all heard about this? Oh, you're saying you haven't heard about it. Katie said she has. All right. This is going to be really, really interesting, everyone. I've got almost 15 slides to show you. So stick with me. This could be a long broadcast. All right. Here's the first one I want to share with you. Bear with me. So this is by Church Leaders website. And this is Joni Lamb and her son Jonathan and Jonathan's wife Susie Lamb. All of the Lamb family are on the executive team of Daystar. Joni husband Marcus died in 2021. We'll get to that. But she has 3 children with Marcus, Rachel, Rebecca, and Jonathan Lamb. The controversy is around Jonathan Lamb, Jonathan and Susie. So we'll get into this. Allegations of cover-up threats and a smear campaign are flying among the family behind Daystar television network. Keep in mind, they're the largest network globally, the largest. The Dallas area Christian broadcasting empire, which has an estimated yearly revenue of $100 million, was founded in 1993 by Marcus and Joni Lamb. Another report says that they bring in $1 billion a year. Until last spring, the couple's son, Jonathan Lamb, was a Daystar vice president and served on its board. In April 2023, the heir apparent was demoted after refusing to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Earlier this month, he was terminated for not meeting a performance improvement plan. Now, I've got a full video, full audio of this meeting that Jonathan was smart enough to record. And we'll be playing that as well. But what you want to pay attention to is that just like a church militant, Daystar was asking everyone to sign non-disclosure agreements too. Now, some people have said, well, what's the big deal? Corporations do that all the time. They do. But why is a Christian network, why is a Catholic network asking for NDAs to be signed? That's what's strange to me. So Jonathan and his wife Susie are speaking out, saying they've been wronged. The couple who once hosted a show on Daystar allege that Joni Lamb has tried to cover up the sexual abuse of their daughter, her granddaughter, by an unnamed family meeting. Let me go into that a little bit further. Jonathan and Susie's four-year-old daughter came to them and said that this family member or this man, she wouldn't say who it was. She said he was taller than daddy and he was new to the family. So this unnamed family man, who they're calling Pete, was new to the family. And this little girl told her mommy, Susie, that he touched her in 2 places. Now, I don't mean just touch her, and I'm not going to get into the graphics of it, the details of it, but I'm just sick that this happened to this little girl. Just sick over it. Oh my gosh, it's so disturbing. A little 4-year-old would not know to say these things unless it happened to her. All right. So when this happened and when this little girl told her mommy about this, Susie did, the mother did what all the Catholics do when it comes to sexual abuse. They call their priest or they call their bishop. So Susie called Joni. And Joni told Susie to bring her daughter, which is Joni's granddaughter, up to see her and she would talk to her. After Joni talked to this little girl, and she told Susie she wanted to talk to her alone. Now remember, these people have trusted Joni and Marcus this whole time. So she said that she went ahead and left the room. But when the little girl came out of that meeting, Susie said she totally went silent about what happened. Even when they went to the police, the little girl would not talk to the police after talking to Joni, her grandmother. I can't imagine why a grandmother would protect the abuser over her own granddaughter. It is inconscionable to me. Well, you know why? Because she was protecting her billions. Had nothing to do with protecting her granddaughter. Now, this is allegedly. All right. So in response, Joni Lamb, Daystar's president, said her son is waging a failed power struggle because he wasn't named president after his father's death in 2021. Rather than improve his own on-the-job performance, she said Jonathan is fabricating a smear campaign. So let me translate here. All right. Jonathan didn't toe the line. So then Joni found ways to get rid of him. And it's unbelievable to me that Joni doesn't get she broke their trust by silencing her own granddaughter because the abuser is new to the family and is married to one of the daughters. That was more important to Joni than what happened to her granddaughter. Now, Daystar, which has more than 100 TV stations in the United States and a worldwide presence, is owned by the Word of God Fellowship, which Joni and Marcus started back in the 80s. So the people that are involved in this network is Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, Creflo Dollar, Joyce Meyer, Andrew Womack, Paula White, and Jim Baker. Now I'm going to extract Joyce Meyer out of there because I know Joyce Meyer is not a part of the prosperity gospel like these other people are. I mean, Joel Osteen is the biggest abuser of this heretical prosperity gospel. And I'm going to share with you some Bible scriptures to share with your parents, your elderly parents, if they're contributing to not only these people, but to Catholic nonprofits like Church Militant, who's now Souls in Liberty, or whatever they are, and others like them. Oh, I have gotten emails from elderly people when I was exposing Church Militant telling me that they were cutting back on groceries so they could send Michael Voris money. And I told them, absolutely stop doing that. You have to take care of yourself. He will be just fine. I've gotten letters and emails from concerned adult children about how their parents have been so taken in by Voris and his ministries that they have given money they didn't have. And I have a clip to show you about this. All right. So Marcus Lamb, who opposed the pandemic shutdowns and the jabs, died from COVID-related complications in late 2021 at age 64. According to Jonathan Lamb, his father had chosen him to eventually head Daystar. But in August 2021, amid a family strife, a new succession plan emerged, tapping Joni as the network's next president. Here's where it gets really interesting. 8 months after Marcus Lamb died, Joni was engaged to Doug Weiss, a sex therapist who had just divorced his longtime wife 2 months after Marcus's death. How can that be, folks? You can't tell me there wasn't a relationship already there, allegedly. Jonathan and Susie Lamb reportedly objected on biblical grounds to the June 2023 marriage between Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss. So think about this. Jonathan and his sisters had just lost their father 8 months earlier. And Joni is already announcing her engagement to another man. Their mother is already past the grieving and has moved on to a new man. Now, in 2010, Marcus Lamb had an affair and came clean about it on air, supposedly. I haven't found the video. Something like a 77-year relationship that was only reason why he came clean is because he was going to get exposed. Same way with Michael Voris. Joni and Marcus should have stepped down from leadership then, and they didn't do it. They worked it out in front of the camera so all their billions would be saved. Getting the picture? So in a November 25th statement of this year, Joni Lamb said Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way to be a Daystar president only deepened when I married Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, the rest of the family, and Daystar. Let me introduce you. Let me introduce you to Doug Weiss. I want you to see this clip and hear what he has to say. Now I got to find it. Hold on, everyone. Okay, I think I found it. Hold on. Doug Weiss and his outrageous statements about Jesus and sex. You can't make this up.
All the same
Medications
symptoms. Yes.
affect people too, don't
So,
they?
and there are medical issues as well. But these are some of the top reasons why people will be sexless and married. And some of them are very fixable very quickly. Some of them take more work. Some of them take more honesty. But we can all have a great sex life. Christ died so we could have great sex and have a great.
Christ died so we could have great sex. That's Joni Lamb's new husband. Did you all know that? That Christ died so we could have great sex? Oh, I don't even know what to say about that one. That is so crazy. All right, so let's move on. That's the new husband, and Joni Lamb wonders why her children won't accept him? Unbelievable. Okay. Let me get to the next slide. Susie Lamb, who is married to Jonathan, says she was pressured to hide her sexual assault. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you the pattern of behavior by Joni Lamb. In January 2017, Susie Lamb, then Daystar TV co-host and daughter-in-law of Daystar founders Marcus and Joni Lamb, claimed she was sexually assaulted at Daystar by an unlicensed chiropractor her in-laws had hired. Why would you hire an unlicensed chiropractor? Number one. But when her husband, then director of operations, Jonathan Lamb, told his parents about it, they buried the assault. Both Jonathan and Susie told the Roy's Report, and we're going to get to that in a minute, in an exclusive interview. According to the couple, Marcus and Joni maintained a culture of secrecy and protection at the large Christian broadcast network. Sound familiar, everyone? Just like the bishops were doing, right? They protect their realm. The couple said they submitted to this culture for more than a decade, but as the Rose Report reported yesterday, Jonathan and Susie have gone public with their experience at Daystar, specifically Marcus and Joni's alleged cover-up of their daughter's sexual assault by a male family member. Susie did not talk about her own sexual assault in our first interview, but over the weekend, she wanted to stand with her daughter as a sexual assault victim and talk about her assault too, which remains traumatizing. According to Jonathan and Susie, the chiropractor had lost his license because of an alleged assault on a minor. This was prior to him assaulting Susie. So they're not revealing the chiropractor's identity because he was never charged with a crime. And this is what happened to the perpetrator, the abuser of Susie's little girl, because she got so scared by what Joni said to her privately that she shut up and has remained mute. They even took the little girl to a forensic psychologist, and she wouldn't open up to the forensic psychologist either. So how did they find out who the man was? Because when the man would enter the building at Daystar or enter their home, the little girl would tense up or run and hide. That's how they knew. Unbelievable, isn't it? All right. It just keeps getting worse and worse. So let me keep going on. Katie says, what did grandma say to the little girl to keep her quiet? No idea, Kate. But generally speaking, what they do is they threaten, right? To silence a child, they threaten them in order to silence them. So who knows what Joni Lamb said to her her granddaughter. That's what I can't wrap my head around. Her billions mean more to her than her own grandmother or than her own granddaughter. All right. Let me go to the next slide. I want to play you this video. And this is Julie Royce. I really love her reporting, and I'm going to give you guys the links. She's an investigative reporter. She's done a really good job on this.
Jonathan and Susie Lamb were the darlings of Daystar TV, one of the largest Christian TV networks in the world. And with that came fame and fortune. But it also came at a very high cost. In our exclusive expose, Jonathan and Susie talk about how they found a male family member alone in a bedroom with their naked 5-year-old daughter. And this came just months after the girl had disclosed that she had been molested. Yet at Daystar, scandals are hidden, the couple say. And when the Lambs went to Jonathan's parents, Daystar co-founders Marcus and Joni Lamb, Marcus and Joni reportedly protected the alleged predator in Daystar's image instead of their own granddaughter. This shocking and sad story has left a huge rift in the Lamb family. And just this past weekend, Daystar fired Jonathan, who at one time was vice president of the ministry. To read the full story, see the link to our article in the comments.
Okay. Sorry, I had a little hiccup back there. All right. I thought I muted my mic. Can you guys hear me? So that video reminded me of another point I wanted to bring up. During COVID, Joni and Marcus applied for PPP protection, and they were given $3.5 million from the government, something like 3.5 or 3.9. Shortly after that, a couple of months after that, they bought a jet. How nice, right? They bought a jet. So they didn't give the money back until they were about ready to be exposed. See how this works? It's just unbelievable. All right, let's get to the next slide. All right. In this video, I'm going to play you the audio version because this is the one that Jonathan Lamb, the meeting that Jonathan Lamb secretly recorded. And Joni Lamb brings in another minister, Jimmy Evans, to support her and really gang up on Jonathan and Susie. There was an hour and a half beatdown on these two people, Susie and Jonathan. They must have said 50 times in this video, submit or leave, submit or leave, submit or leave. And they were trying to say that Joni is their boss, which she is if they're employed at Daystar, and that no matter what Joni says, they need to submit and they need to do whatever she says. And Jimmy Evans, who, oh my gosh, I have no respect for Joni or Jimmy now after hearing this, but Jimmy Evans said that Jonathan worked in a bubble, and in the real world, you can never tell a boss no. I'm listening to this and I'm going, well, that's not true at all. First of all, that meeting would have never taken place in the real world without someone from HR sitting there mediating. Second of all, I've told bosses no lots of times. I've given them valid reasons for why I couldn't do something. And guess what, everyone? They respected my choice. They respected my choice. You're going to hear spiritual abuse, spiritual manipulation. I mean, if you have time to listen to this whole hour and a half, you should do it. I only got to like an hour and 26 minutes. I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, it was egregious how they were browbeating them. This would have never happened in the real world. And I think Susie and Jonathan have a clear case of harassment again. And I am certain they broke, Joni and Jimmy Evans broke labor laws. This was just, I want to play it for you. Whoops, I clicked out of it. Hold on. I've got it set at like an hour and 19 minutes. All right. But this will give you a snippet of how the entire conversation went. And during this conversation, Jimmy and Joni kept saying, I love you, Susie. I love you, Jonathan. I love you, but, and they wouldn't give Jonathan a moment to speak. It was incredible. This is a taste.
Together, and whatever decision we made together, that was God's voice to me. Between meetings, I was the boss. Okay.
Jimmy Evans is claiming that Joni is the voice of God at Daystar. She's the voice of God. And no matter what Jonathan hears as the voice of God, doesn't matter, because Joni is the voice of God. That is heretical right there, folks.
But in those meetings, they were the boss. Okay. Somebody has to be God's voice to you. Okay. That's her. Whoever your boss is. Now, if you went to work for the post office, your boss is still your boss. You have to do what they say. It may not be God's voice to you, but they're God's voice to you as it relates to your employment. In this situation, spiritually, you work for Daystar, and that's also your employment. That's your covering. She's God's voice to you. You're not her covering. Okay. And so,
Well, I mean, God has his own voice to me too.
individually, yeah, about the decisions that you and Susie make and all those about your children. Absolutely. You have your own relationship
Right.
over here. But here, when you walk into Daystar, she's your covering. She's God's voice to you.
Just like Marcus was the covering
That's right.
before.
And you can't come in and say, well, I've been praying over here. Susie and I've been praying over here, and we don't agree with that. So we're going to import this private decision into Daystar and force it from the bottom up. When you walk in this door, you have to submit to her. And if you can't come back. That's what she's saying. And I'm saying to you, you're not submitted, Jonathan. You're not submitted. And part of it has to do with the conflict between you guys.
Do we have any conflict?
Well, you are now.
They
You
think
are
I have
not.
you by the balls,
No.
babe.
No, if you sit there and say you're submitted
Where-
and you go home tonight and she's not, now you got another set of problems.
They're trying to say that Jonathan isn't submitted. Now, he's already told his mother that he submits to her. But it's like they just keep on and on and on. And then they try to drive a wedge between Jonathan and his wife, Susie, because Susie has chosen a different path. So I'll just keep playing it.
No, you are the leader for home. I follow your lead. You make your decision, babe.
So you have
As you
no
al- as
problem.
you
if
always
he-
have.
You have no problem if he comes and reads a good comment about
Why?
that.
I told him to read the card. I walked out of there before I knew what he was going to do.
Yeah.
I
You
have
walked out.
never told
You
him.
walked out.
She walked up.
All right. So let me tell you what they meant by reading the card. This is so stupid. This whole meeting is about, there was a viewer comment, and Joni told Susie and Jonathan to read the viewer comment praising her marriage to Doug. And Susie wouldn't read it because these two imbeciles can't even see that their own son is grieving the death of their father. Joni's already moved on. She's already moved on, has her new husband, and she is forcing her children to accept her new husband without question. You know, the man that said that Jesus was crucified so we could have great sex, that man. So this whole meeting, an hour and a half meeting, is about the fact that Joni should be able to give them any card to read on the air that she wants, and their personal opinions, their personal convictions don't matter. And that's what this is about. It's just so stupid. It's unbelievable. Why is she forcing her kids to read comments from viewers praising her marriage? It's just so icky.
On her own. And
Because Delisha said I had no option.
And then he didn't read it.
well,
I don't know what he did. I didn't even know what happened until he told me later.
Yeah.
I didn't say come with me. Ew.
Well, then you have a house divided one way or the other.
No,
Nope.
you don't.
Our house is at
Right.
peace. I stand in my convictions and I'm under his leadership.
Right. So you submit to her and you go home, whatever happens at home, and then you come in here and you're submitted. That's the right answer. Is that what you're saying?
yes, sir. I mean, again, if I'm submitted, like I've never been not submitted to you.
Yeah.
That's all I want to hear is that you're submitted to me. That's it.
You have not been submitted to her,
You
Jonathan.
have not been
That's why
submitted.
we're in this room right
That's why
now.
we're here.
Did you hear that play back and forth there? Joni says, that's all I wanted to hear is that you'll submit. Jonathan at this point has been so badgered and beaten down, he doesn't know which way is up. By his own mother, right? By his own mother. And this Jimmy Evans is trying to drive a wedge between everything. So when Jimmy Evans says, no, you're not submitted, it's like he kept, during this whole hour and a half, he kept telling Jonathan what he really was thinking. And it's like, you're not a mind reader, dude. Let the man talk. And this is just such spiritual abuse. It's unbelievable.
But my point is, I love you, and I'm led by the Lord. And if
You're led by her.
no, but I'm led by the Lord first.
Well, so if your leading of the Lord is telling you you
See, Jonathan says, I'm being led by the Lord. Oh, no, you're not. Jimmy's got to, these people in the beginning talked about how much experience they have, right? How wise they are as church leaders. And they don't even see that this young man is grieving his father. They don't even get it.
can't submit to everything she says, then you have a personal conflict, like Susie was saying. You're saying you're led by the Lord. In Daystar, can you imagine all these employees showing up every day and saying, well, I appreciate you, what you're saying, but we're led by the Lord, and we'll need to pray about that before we do it. Hey, get out of here.
But that's true. But I wouldn't ask an employee to do something that's against their conviction if
Yeah,
they
you
felt
do.
really
You do it all
strongly.
the time.
Like what?
You think they want to work every time you tell them to work? You think that all your employees want to do exactly what you tell them to do?
No. I'm talking about something that would be, if you had a conviction that it might be wrong in front of, like under God's eyes.
Well, I think it would be wrong to ask them to sin. But other
But
than
this is not a sin. And it's just
not
like
a
this
sin.
pastor said, there were times when he was under authority that he didn't agree,
that's right.
but he submitted. And the Lord blessed him for that.
Yeah.
Because God works in straight lines.
Yeah.
And if you have one
And
out
see,
there-
that's where I think that, that makes sense. Obviously I don't want to do anything that would be
well, you have been. And that's what we're telling you
considered
right now.
witchcraft, but at the same time,
It is rebellion. It's a sin of witchcraft. It is stubbornness. It is idolatry. It is all those things. You know that you can trust me. You know that you can.
How can they trust her when she silenced their daughter? This is just so incredible. they accused Susie and Jonathan of being under the spell of a witchcraft spirit, in a spirit of rebellion. And it's, oh gosh, I'm getting worked up, everybody.
I have proven it over the years. And so either you trust me and you submit or you don't. And that's it. I just need to, that's all I need to know. You tell me you submit, I've submitted to you, Mom, and I'm fine.
If the Lord came down to you and just said, Joni, I don't think this relationship is right with Doug, would you submit to the Lord?
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, you don't even know all the stuff that's happened.
Because I remember you framed that question to Reverend Piazza, and he struggled with being able to answer that.
Oh, I don't struggle.
But you're good.
at all.
Okay, that makes me feel good.
I promise
Because
you, 100%.
if you had said you're 100% resolute that God would never do that,
Listen,
because you realize that
I
you
took
could,
this-
you realize you could
I took
potentially
this
be wrong,
decision-
right?
I took this
You look
decision
at
very
someone
seriously.
I
like
mean, she could be wrong about marrying Doug.
potentially. I mean, you look at
In other words, she could have made a mistake.
potentially. I mean, you look at someone like Catherine Kuhlman, the most anointed woman of God, and she said the
I
greatest
always
mistake of her
compare
life.
myself to Catherine Kuhlman, but let's just
But I'm just
say-
saying that the greatest regret of her life was her
I'm saying that
marriage and
Jesus
fell
appeared
apart.
to me right now.
They won't let him talk. Just won't let him talk. I'm going to stop it here. I want to suggest that you really watch that, and I'll put all the links in the comment section. A lot of this is on julieroyce.com. Julie, and that's ROYS, I think. So I've got some more to show you. Okay. Former Daystar executive and wife accused Joni Lamb of covering up daughter's sexual abuse. And this is on Julie Roy's, ROYS, website. And this was as of November 20th. And she says, on a hot August day in Florida in 2021, then Daystar TV executive Jonathan Lamb was summoned by his frightened wife, Susie. Pete, one of the male relatives, had followed their 5-year-old daughter upstairs as the girl was going to change to go swimming. It's like Pete's eyes went black and he's like in a zombie mode, Susie recounted to the Rollis report. Jonathan rushed into his daughter's upstairs room at a beach house Daystar had rented for its annual executive retreat in Miramar Beach. To my horror, when I got up there, my daughter was completely naked and he was in the room. And I was just immediate, like, what are you doing? Screaming at the top of my lungs. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He apologized like 50 times, like I caught him red-handed. And another incident at the beach house, this Pete, who is married to one of the daughters, Joni's daughters, who Joni's protecting. Supposedly, this little 5-year-old girl walked in on him in the bathroom and he was completely naked, frontal view. Now, if you're vacationing with people, wouldn't you have enough sense to lock the door if you're going to be completely naked in a bathroom? I mean, this man has every inkling of a pedophile. And in one video that I can't share it with you, I saw it and then I went back to look for it and I couldn't find it. He described, Joni had him on the broadcast about how he met Joni's daughter. And he described her daughter as a hot little girl. Man, if that isn't a clear giveaway, I don't know what is. That's the way pedophiles talk. All right. Let me go to the next one. Okay. This made my blood boil. Made my blood boil. This is a former employee. Excuse me. Okay, I think I'm good. This is a former employee.
They do the semi-annual telethon there. I think they call it Heart for the World now. There's a room there just full of phones and cubicles and several hundred people in there that just answer phones all day. And the prayer department was in charge of taking the calls during the telethon when people would call in to donate. But every once in a while, the call volume would be so high that all company employees would be required to be on standby on their phone. And so this was one of those particular occasions. The call volume was exceptionally high. And lo and behold, my phone rang. I answer it, and it's this sweet little elderly lady, and she's weeping, and she's telling me that she's completely in debt. She has nothing, no money, but she does have a last little bit on her credit card, and she's going to give that to Daystar because the person on air said that if you give $1,000 today, God is going to give you $10,000 back. I don't really have words to say how horrible I felt in that moment, that I took that card number and I ran that card, because it just felt very, very wrong. And that was really the first time that I stopped and said, do I want to be a part of this? Is this the kingdom of God? Because I don't know how you can justify that before God. I just don't. There were people there like that spoke that way, that taught that way, that really perpetuated this idea of the prosperity gospel. You know, God's going to give you back what you give tenfold. There were just so many beautiful, innocent people who bought that hook, line, and sinker, and in desperation would call in. I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. By the end, I was glad that I had my son's birth as an excuse to walk away.
It reminds me so much of those emails I was getting from the elderly when I was talking about coming out about church militant. And they were writing these heart-wrenching emails, you know, just believing so much that, you know, if they just skimped on their grocery bill, that they would be able to give Michael more money, you know, and those campaigns that they would put out, you know, help save souls. No, help pay whatever Michael wanted. That's what the donations were used for. No accountability at all. So let me play part 2 of this.
Sort of living in this dichotomy of, I loved them. I thought they were great people. I thought they were good men and women of God. And I think at the time, in a lot of ways, they were. But at the same time, I was seeing things that I wondered why no one was speaking up about. You know, I remember when Marcus Lamb got his Maserati, he didn't announce it, but I remember there was a social media post and he was in the car and you could see the Maserati logo over his head above the seatbelt. Everybody started buzzing and talking about it. Marcus has got a Maserati. And there was just little things like that along the way incrementally that I just thought, is no one bothered by this? Like this is donor money. The entire empire is built on donor money. no one is bothered by the fact that it's being spent this way. It was little things like that all in the way that, began to accumulate in my mind, and this picture that everyone has of them as people and the practices that were happening in their organization at the same time seemed to be at odds. And it was, for a young person, it was confusing. Marcus got his Maserati while I was there. I think they were building the mansion that Joni lives in now. I think they were building that at that time. I just saw these things incrementally that I was just like, I don't know how you sleep at night, telling people on air that every penny of the donations that come into Daystar through Heart for the World go to missions, when darn well, when you lay your head down at night, that there's one bank account and ain't nobody sitting here checking every penny. There were things like that I could no longer feel like I could be a part of with any kind of integrity. So I was thankful for the opportunity to leave.
Same thing at Church Militant. Now, Michael didn't live a lavish lifestyle, but I'm sure if they brought in $1 billion, he probably would. But it's the same thing. There was no accountability for how the donor money was being used. I have been on ProPublica trying to dig into Daystar more. There are like 250 Daystar entities on ProPublica. And I can't find the one that, I don't know if they've got a bunch of small ministries that they've branched. I don't know what they're doing. But I wanted to dig into what their salaries were at Daystar. I can only imagine if they're building a mansion, what kind of income that Joni and Marcus had, what kind of income the executive leadership had. And through all of this, they have now fired Jonathan. So Jonathan does not have a job anymore, which is really tragic. But before I get to the next part, I want to play Joni Lamb's rebuttal to all of this. It's nauseating.
A few minutes today to speak from my heart to the Daystar family and friends. Recently, Daystar made the decision to terminate my son, Jonathan Lamb's employment. That decision was not taken lightly. It followed a 15-month review of Jonathan's performance and his refusal to take any steps to satisfy a detailed performance improvement plan put in place. He also refused my offer to participate in a formal mediation to resolve grievances in a biblical and professional manner. Rather than take any steps to improve his performance at Daystar, it seems clear now that Jonathan was focused on fabricating a smear campaign. You see, Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar following the death of his father and my husband, Marcus Lamb, despite the fact that Marcus had given a clear directive to the family and to the board that I would succeed him as president.
The board, who consists of Jonathan and her two buddies. There we go again. Surround yourself with the yes people.
Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way only deepened when I married Dr. Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, the rest of my family, and Daystar.
I guess I can't listen to any more. How can this man, Doug Weiss, be a blessing when her husband had only been dead 8 months? Her kids are grieving about their dad's death. And this bozo goes on Daystar Air and said Jesus was crucified so that we could have great sex. I mean, this woman, in my view, has no credibility. She threw her granddaughter under the bus for billions. That's what she did. Jonathan and Susie don't trust her, and I wouldn't trust her either. Jonathan and Susie hasn't said that. I'm just telling you. I read people's behaviors. I know behaviors. They don't trust Joni, and they shouldn't. She's just as much of a predator. She wants to twist the narrative to make her look like the victim when it's her kids that are the victims and her grandchild that's the victim. Okay. Let me make sure I got to everything. I did. All right. Now, I want to talk to you about how to protect your elder parents from stuff like this. Oh my gosh. So, I've gotten even recently letters about this. Ask your elderly parent if they believe God wants them to donate. Ask them that question. They're going to think, well, two things will happen. They'll either go, well, I don't know, or for some reason, there's some kind of reparation they're trying to make, some kind of atonement they're trying to make. There's a reason why they won't disconnect from some kind of Catholic or Christian organization they're hooked up to. And when I mean hooked up to, I mean they can't see the forest from the trees. So, showing them videos probably is not going to help. But I would try to help them redirect whatever donations they want to give to an organization or a church that you both can agree on. The next thing I would do is contact the organization and tell them your parent can't afford the donation and ask for the donation back. Now, I don't know if you need a power of an attorney to do this or not. If you do have a power of attorney with your parents, you can absolutely do this. I know that I stepped in with some people that had reached out to me about their parents, and I was able, with church militant is what I mean, I was able to get some of the people's money back. But, you know, after a while, they just stopped listening, or church militant stopped answering my emails. So, you know, when Catholic and Christian organizations don't care how those donations are coming in and who is scrimping and saving in order to give those donations, they just don't care. Another thing you can do, and I did this for my dad, I contact his bank and his credit card company, and I filed a dispute. So he was given to this charity, and every single month, I said, Dad, do you know they're taking out $200 every single month? Well, I thought I stopped that. He may have never even stopped it at all. And when I contacted them, they wouldn't do anything about it. So I called the bank and the credit card company, and I disputed every transaction. I got 2 years back for my dad. 2 years back for my dad. You got to be patient. It takes a lot of phone calls, and it'll take you a few months, but I got it done. I was not going to let these people get away with this. If the organization will not help, I did this. I contacted Indiana State's Attorney General's office, and I reported this organization. I reported them. You can do that too. Now, I want to address this whole prosperity gospel that is heretical. All right. Joni Lamb, Daystar, Joel Osteen, Jakes, all of them. This prosperity gospel, as you know, is just another way to hook people into giving donations. That's all it is. If you give 1,000, God will give you back 10,000. Well, here's what the Bible says. Give this to your parent. Focus on eternal riches, not earthly wealth. 1 Timothy 6, 7 through 10. For we brought nothing into the world, just as we shall not be able to take anything out of it. If we have food and clothing, we shall be content with that. Now, it doesn't say, to scrimp on your grocery bill to give donations. It just says, if you don't have a lot, be content with that. Those who want to be rich are falling into temptation and into a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires, which plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all evils, and some people in their desire for it have strayed from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. I believe this biblical verse should go right straight to Joni Lamb, because she threw her granddaughter under the bus to save her billions. All right, number 2. Here's the second Bible verse on focus on eternal riches, not earthly wealth. Matthew 6, 19 through 21. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. You hear that, Joni? Where moth and decay destroy and thieves break in and steal, but store up treasures in heaven where neither moth nor decay destroys, nor thieves break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. Joni's heart was not with her granddaughter. She would have helped her, not silenced her. A little 4-year-old innocent girl. All right. Next. Godliness does not guarantee material gain. Philippians 4, 11 through 13. Not that I say this because of need, for I have learned in whatever situation I find myself to be self-sufficient. I know indeed how to live in humble circumstances. I know also how to live with abundance. In every circumstance and in all things, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of living in abundance, of being in need. I have the strength for everything through him who empowers me. I hope you're writing these down for your elderly parents. Okay, number 4 verse. Godliness does not guarantee material gain. 2 Corinthians 12, chapter 12, 9 through 10. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. I will rather boast more gladly of my weaknesses, in order that the power of Christ may dwell with me. Therefore, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and constraints for the sake of Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. By the way, this is from the St. Joseph Bible translation, everyone. Wealth can be a spiritual hazard. Mark 10, verse 25. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. Oh, Joni thinks she's going right to heaven. Luke 12, verse 15. Then he said to the crowd, take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions. And the last one, everyone, and then I'll take your comments. True riches come from God's kingdom. Proverbs 30, 8 through 9. Put falsehood and lying far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Provide me only with the food I need, lest being full, I deny you, saying, who is the Lord? Or being in want, I steal and I profane the name of God. And then Hebrew 13:5. Let your life be free from love of money, but be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never forsaken you or abandon you. Those are Bible verses you can hang your hat on. All right, everyone. Let's get to your comments. So Kate says, yes, she's heard about all of this controversy. Lou says that she has not. Kate says hi to Nicole. Lou says, Father knows how to call a spade a spade. That's for sure, Lou. You're right about that. Nicole says, I don't think I've heard about this unless this is the woman at odds with her son. Is that her? Yes. Yep, that's her. Daystar scandal sounds like a sick soap opera. That's funny you said that, Kate, because when I was putting this all together, and I have listened to, I can't tell you how many videos. Some of them were awful. So Julie Royce did the best job really summarizing everything, and she did the interviews and all of that. So I really stuck with her stuff. But when I was putting it all together, that's exactly what I thought, Kate. I thought, my gosh, this could be As the World Turns. Do you guys remember that? I was a little girl, and my mother would iron every day watching As the World Turns. Okay. Kayla says, Satan hates the Catholic Church because it's the true church, which is why scandals from other denominations and religions are not well known. Yeah, Julie Royce, though, boy, she is going after a bunch of Protestant preachers and denominations. She's a watchdog, all right. But I agree that, and you know what? So on social media, when people come after me and attack me from being Catholic, I'm just going to say to them, yeah, you might want to pay attention, to your own house, i.e. Daystar. Kayla says, I've never heard of these people. Back in the days when I was not in the church, still Catholic. I mean, I didn't even call myself Catholic because I wasn't a practicing Catholic. And I remember watching Joni. She has a show called Joni's Table Talk. And I remember watching her on TV. And there was something about her I just didn't care for. And so I didn't watch it that often. But now I really don't care for her. And this was back in 2000, 2001, late 19, like 1998, 1999. I came back to the church in 2008. And of course, you all have heard me say I was looking for God in all the wrong places. Kate says, yes, it is. My heart goes out for the granddaughter. The parents have gotten the police involved. Yeah, I saw that, Kate. Thanks for reminding me of that. So the original police report, they closed it because the little girl wouldn't talk to the police about what happened. So they didn't have any choice but to close the case. Then they took the girl to a forensic psychologist who, is a friend of Joni's too. And the forensic psychologist closed the case because the little girl wouldn't talk to her either. But this forensic psychologist interviewed Pete and apparently cleared him. I don't know, kids. I don't know. Trouble seems to follow Jim Baker wherever he goes. I agree. He's another one that I just couldn't wrap my head around that one. And then poor Tammy Faye Baker, she basically died penniless. And I think was he in prison when she died or just getting out? I don't remember. My mom knew a lady who gave her entire income tax refund to a pastor once. She needed that check. So sad. I just don't, you'll never convince me that this is God's plan. That you don't take care of yourself and you give your money to these, even the parishes. If you've got millions of dollars and you give a parish $1 million, that's different. But when you're pinching pennies yourself and I almost cried when I read this email from this person. And I didn't hear this just from one. I heard this from several elderly people that they were cutting back on food so they could give Michael Voris money. Okay. Paxman says, my elderly in-laws gave thousands to Jimmy Swaggart Ministries. I'm the first person who left Swaggart Bible College and became Catholic. I forgave Tim Staples for stealing my thunder. Forgiveness is good. That's a good one. Lou says this story has ick written all over it. I agree. And it's like the more I was going down this rabbit hole, the ickier it got. And then when I found that video of her husband saying Jesus was crucified so we could have, great sex, I'm like, what? Kate says it makes you feel unclean listening to it. I agree. And I played the mild parts of that audio of Joni and this Jimmy just drilling down on Jonathan and Susie. It really upset me. One, that a mother thought this was okay to do. Two, that she had to bring in support to help her do it. And if you noticed in there, in the part I played, Jimmy would say something and then Joni would correct herself and then repeat what Jimmy said. And then the other part is there was no HR person in there with them. As an employer, I mean, this reeks of all kinds of lawsuits, and I hope Jonathan and Susie sue. The authorities need to check and see if there was foul play in Marcus's death. Kate, I'm not going to say I didn't have that thought, because I did. I had the same thought. Yep, most definitely. They were already together, just saying. He had been on their broadcast many, many times throughout the years. So Joni knew him, right? And, you bury your husband 1 month, and then you're engaged 8 months later, and the man just divorced his wife the week before. I don't know. Something doesn't sound right. Good grief. Are all these people on drugs or what? Their drug is money, Lou. That's their drug. It's money. Yeah, there it is, Kate. What did Grandma? I read that earlier. I don't know, but when kids go silent on you, it's because of a threat. Yep, Kayla, evil grandmother. Lou, if I think my little girl has been harmed or abused in any way, I'm not leaving her alone with anyone, including that poor excuse for a grandmother. Yeah, just keep in mind, Lou, that when Susie took the little girl up there, at that point, Susie still trusted Joni, right? Now, was that generous of Susie? Because Joni tried to cover up her own, Susie's own sexual abuse by the chiropractor. That should have been a red flag for Susie. I'm not going to beat up on Susie and Jonathan about that, because they have been so mesmerized and so conditioned to submit, that they're not thinking clear. They're not thinking on their own. In one video interview of Susie, the interviewer asked her, why didn't you go into the room with the little girl? And she said, she said she wanted to talk to her alone. And she says, I guess that I trusted Joni would do the right thing. Well, she found out different. They all protect each other. That's right. I wouldn't let my child anywhere near the grandmother. I wouldn't either. I mean, as a grandmother, I just can't wrap my head around that. Kate says, same, will be glued to my hip. Exactly. Well, and that's one thing that Susie talked about, was that her and her little girl was always very, very close. And now this little girl just clings to her. Well, of course she does, right? Of course she does. Poor thing. In their Christmas picture, the little boy is smiling and the little girl has the saddest look on her face. Now, I didn't pull it up to show you guys, because I don't want to exploit these children anymore. I don't think Jonathan and Susie should have put that picture out there personally, but they did. Which is why, I've told you guys, my son's adamant about not putting any pictures of my grandson out there because of what's going on in the world. So I respect my son, and I haven't done it. I wish you could see him. He's a little cutie pie. He looks like me when I was little. He's got my blue eyes. So little Everett and I are the only two blue-eyed family members. He got my blue eyes. Cult. Yeah. Well, and they use, like I said, I didn't play you everything on that full audio where Jonathan secretly recorded it. I am so glad he did that. That's his insurance policy. That was very smart of him. So he already isn't trusting his mother with right judgment if he went that far, right? I'm so glad he did. But in that entire thing, I bet they said submit 50 times. I'm not kidding you. It's horrible. These people are delusional. They sure are. And what's even, they believe their own BS. You know, they use God. I mean, all through that meeting, they use God and the Bible as their tools. And it was just, you've got to listen. I know I keep saying that. You got to listen to it. You got to listen to the whole thing. And I felt so sorry for Jonathan and Susie just patiently sitting there and listening to them drone on and badger them through this whole meeting. It's unbelievable. And to say that they have to submit because Joni is the voice of God while she's at Daystar? I don't even think I've ever heard a priest say they're the voice of God. I don't think I've even heard the Pope say that, right? Have you all ever heard that come out of a Catholic clergy's mouth? Tell me in the comments. I don't think I've ever heard that. Lou Bingo. Scientology. Okay, so here's the part, another part I didn't go into. They use Scientology tactics on Jonathan and Susie. They would leave, and there were black SUVs that were following them. There were black SUVs parked out in front of their house. So they were all about intimidation, which is what Scientologists do. When people leave, I forget what they call that now. So Joni used the same tactics, hired private investigators, just like Scientology does. It's unbelievable. Kayla, this is sick and twisted. It sure is. Yeah, you know what, Kayla? They got nothing on the Catholic. I mean, they cannot criticize the Catholic Church at all. I feel for him, bless his heart. Absolutely. Kayla, using God to manipulate silence, excuse is completely disturbing, disgusting, and demonic. And they were trying to say Susie and Jonathan were the demonic ones. He probably blamed the little girl. That's what pedos do. Right. Well, what he did is he denied the whole thing. He denied it all. He said the little girl walked in on him when he was completely naked, and she walked in on him. Then when he went upstairs and she was in her room changing her clothes, so she's naked, he said he went up there to look at the city view out the window. That's what Joni actually said in an interview. He went into that little girl's bedroom while she was naked because he wanted to look out the window at the city view. A grandmother said this. "2024 has been a year of truth and discovery." Boy, isn't that the truth, Kate? The truth always has a way of coming out. It sure does. Shades of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. I think it's worse than Jim and Tammy Baker. I don't think they ever covered up a child's sexual abuse, their own family member. That's what I mean, it's bad enough if it was somebody in the parish, but their own granddaughter. It's what I don't understand. Why do these people have to have the fanciest cars and biggest houses? Why do they need jets and fancy suits? They don't need mansions to preach. Exactly, Kate. Exactly. There's another, his name is Kevin. Oh my gosh. His last name begins with a Z. Now I can't remember what it is. He is posting, he's a one of these prosperity gospel preachers, has his own church, of course. He's always, posing pictures or posting pictures on social media of him getting out of his jet, of him and his wife getting out of his jet. I mean, I just don't get how they don't see that's rubbing it in the faces of their donors or even their parishioners that may not be making as much money hardly at all. I don't get it. Yep, PTL all over again. Oh yeah, I don't even know what are they still around? Kate, PTL? Let's see. Carolyn says, I think you meant Voris never got a red cent from me. And after I witnessed his growing rage on air, I knew I had made the right decision. Oh yeah, he was getting angrier and angrier and angrier. Yeah. Kayla says, I was a premium member until the veil was lifted from my eyes. God revealed the truth. Thank God, Kayla. Anne says, it may take a while, but these people always get exposed because their greed gets in the way. True statement, Anne. Heaven can only take so much before it all comes down. Yep. That's and what is astounding to me is they think they're on the side of heaven. Like I said, they use God and the Bible as their tools. Okay, Kate says, no, I think it closed after Jim Baker went to jail. Yeah, it did. It did. I wasn't sure if, PTL, is that it? No, I think PTL closed after Jim Baker went to jail. Okay, got it. Right, okay. All right. That's all the comments right now, everyone. So that was an unusually longer one than normal. I just really want to pray for this little girl. They're calling her Little Lamb. That's what they're calling her, Little Lamb. Pray for this little girl. She's the one that needs the prayers. Because other than her parents, she definitely can't trust her grandmother. So the reason how they found out who it was because every time this man came around, she would tense up or she would go run and hide. And that's how they knew. I'll tell you, if that was my son, that man would be in the hospital right now. I'm certain of it, because he would never tolerate a man doing that to his daughter or to his son. And what this man did was horrendous. I mean, scar the poor little girl for the rest of her life. For the rest of her life. This man took her innocence evil. And Joni and his wife stick up for him because he said he didn't do it. All right, everyone. Remember how we end, right? And this is the promise which he made us, life everlasting. Eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Our plan has to be Jesus. And let's keep little Lamb in our prayers. Bye, everyone. Oh, real quick, before we go. I sent out, I told you last time, like 20 emails. Well, I've gotten about 10 of them back. And they have pushed me back until August. One said July, some said August, some said September because they're so busy. So I'm going to do a broadcast coming up probably next week sometime. And I'll start with outlining what I wanted to talk to this person about. And I'll show you some of their videos. And then if I can get them back on in August to talk further about it, I'll do that. So I've got some things in the works. So eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Let it be Jesus. Bye, everyone. Have a happy new year.